Everybody. This is the March edition of the Oddity Wine Club, and uh, full disclosure, Todd and I haven't spoken at all about these wines, so I'm going in even stupider than usual. So I don't think I'll say a thing. So let's have Todd go with it and see where we land.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Edition 5, I think, for Oddity Wine Club. Thanks for coming back to visit. We've got 4 wonderful family-owned wineries that we're going to taste today. So I'll jump right into wine number 1, which is from the Alsace region of France. Beautiful, beautiful part of the country if you've never been. Amazing people, super friendly. The food's awesome. Yeah, just gorgeous. So the wine that we've got in front of you is Domaine Weinbach Pinot Blanc. This is like undebatably one of the best wineries in the region. The winery was founded in 1898. They're on the 5th generation, family owned and operated. All the fruit that they use for their wines are all estate, so they own all their own vineyards. What else can we say? They're completely biodynamic in their farming methods. They started conversion about 25 years ago, and they finished in 2005. Alsace is in the northeast part of France. On the west side of the appellation, there's a large mountain range called the Vosges Mountains, which gives it a very unique climate because it's a wind barrier or a weather barrier, so it stops all the cold air and weather coming in from the Atlantic. So it's actually, even though it's cool because it's north, it's quite dry. So they get these long hang times in the fall, which results in these richer, more textured whites than we're used to from that part of Europe. On the other side, on the east side of the appellation, there's a river that separates it from Germany. So there's a lot of German-speaking people in that part of France, a lot of German influence in the food and the architecture as well. That part of France has gone back and forth between Germany and France several times, depending on what war was going on at the time. So lots of history there as well. A lot of the farming done in the region is done organic or biodynamically because of that mountain range that protects all the wet weather. And the wines of the region can be sweet or dry. This wine is bone dry, and this wine is quite unique. So on the label, it says that it's Pinot Blanc, but the appellation law says that Pinot Blanc and Pinot Auxerrois are interchangeable when it comes to wine labeling. So this is actually 70% Pinot Auxerrois and 30% Pinot Blanc. It's a delicious wine though, lots of texture. So we'll get into a tasting note here. The nose is ripe, the fruit character is ripe, fresh, and I get ripe peach, apple, and there's a really lovely floral character to this wine. It smells like spring, right? Like we're coming into spring now. We've got all the blossoms coming out, so it just smells like spring blossoms. There's a light honeyed note to this as well, a little bit of white pepper, lots of minerality. Smells like it's just rained outside. A little bit of an alcoholic pop there at the end. It's not out of balance, but there's definitely some richness and there's some weight. This is a pretty full-bodied white with lots of texture, moderate acidity. It's fresh, but without being super tart. And that finish really pushes through. You get a lot of the same like ripe peach and apple, but I find it kind of finishes dry with like a honeyed kind of savory note. Yeah, the length is great.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of Granny Smith off of this for sure.
Yeah, it's a fruity mineral wine. I love the wines of Alsace. Anne and I had the opportunity to visit there about 4 years ago, and we're absolutely smitten with the people and the wines. It's just such a beautiful place. For those of you that are active and like to travel, there's amazing hiking trails and lots of cycling. People go there to do all those kinds of things. Yeah, so if you haven't been had a chance to visit, it is beautiful. If you Google Alsace and look at the images, especially in the fall, it is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to. In terms of food pairing, sorry, go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, in terms of me being a total amateur, if I'm walking through the wine store, Pinot Blanc is not something that I'm like, oh my God, Pinot Blanc, it's not something that jumps out at you. I don't know, and me not knowing what I'm talking about, I wonder what the sales are compared to the Pinot Gris of the world, and if someone's looking for something a little more recognizable or a little more interesting, for some reason it doesn't scream, wow, this is going to fascinate you, and are there, would you only get Pinot Blanc from Alsace region because it is there's more depth to it, there's more going on to it, or how do you kind of distinguish? I know your knowledge is super broad, but when you're saying, oh, it's a Pinot Blanc night, what kind of night is that? Why would you say, oh, Pinot Blanc, that's the one I want?
That's a great question. In Alsace, they've got the 4 noble varieties, which are Riesling, Pinot Gris, Gewürztraminer, and Muscats. So in order to be planted on there's 51 Grand Crus in Alsace. Those are the 4 grapes that are allowed to appear on wine labels. That being said, there are a lot of producers in Alsace that produce wines of Grand Cru quality, and I would argue that this is one of them, but you'll never see Grand Cru on a label. Pinot Blanc is a mutation of Pinot Noir, right? Pinot Gris is a mutation of Pinot Noir. So you got Pinot Noir, which just means Pinot Black. Pinot Gris means Pinot Gray. Pinot Blanc means Pinot White, right? So it's white Pinot Noir. And it's a bit of a chameleon. It really adapts like Chardonnay does to its site and to its region. So it's very adaptable, but it doesn't have the cachet or the brand recognition, like you said, of Pinot Gris or Pinot Noir. I think the most interesting bottlings I've had have certainly come from Alsace, but they grow it in Germany and they do a really good job there. I've seen some producers in the Mosel region of Germany who, of course, that's famous for Riesling, but sometimes producers want to drink something besides Riesling, so they'll make a small amount of Pinot Blanc because it'll ripen in those cooler regions if they're given good sites, and then oak age it a little bit and kind of treat it like Chardonnay, which I've had some interesting bottlings that have been done like that. And also in British Columbia, Barb Phillip, the master of wine that works for the BC liquor stores now, she's the European wine buyer for BC liquor stores. When she did her MW thesis paper, she wrote it on Pinot Blanc in the Okanagan, saying that this was the grape variety that BC should hang its hat on. Of course, nobody knows what Pinot Blanc is, so most people don't grow it, but it's very suited to our climates and to our northerly latitude and to our shorter growing season. So I've had some very interesting, delicious bottlings of Pinot Blanc from the Okanagan. Unfortunately, most growers don't grow it because it doesn't have the cachet, but it makes very interesting, delicious wines from the Okanagan too.
And one other point that you said, Pinot Blanc can be dry, can be sweet. Is that based on the vintage? Is it based one farm, one winery will have pretty dry this year, and then the next year it's not so dry? Or is it just a matter of where your plot of land is and that's what you're married to for life?
In Alsace, the wines would be sweet or dry. I've never had a sweet Pinot Blanc outside of Alsace. And that being said, I don't think I've ever had a sweet Pinot Blanc. In Alsace, for sure, they've got sweet and dry wines. I've never had a bottling of Pinot Blanc that has been sweet. But in context of Alsace in general, it's really hard to say. They're working on it, but there's no legal guidelines on whether the wines have to be sweet or dry in Alsace. And it's really up to knowing the producer. Some producers, like Zine Humbrecht, for example, which is another very famous producer from Alsace, will put 1 through 5 on the back of his labels, so that 0 is dry and 5 is super sweet. So a lot of his wines are between 0 and 2, so they're bone dry or a little bit sweet.
Is that just because I know they have their different classifications for Riesling, like the Cabernet and, you know, those things that tell you about dryness and sweetness. Is that principle, and just using numbers instead, or?
That's in Germany, and in Germany, I've never seen a Pinot Blanc. That's not to say they don't exist, but I've never seen one. They're called Predikat. So you've got Cabernet, Spätlese, Auslese, and what that has to do with is the amount of sugar that is in the grape juice after they've crushed the grapes, essentially. Is the best way that I can describe it. And so I guess legally, if it comes from Predikat, it can be labeled Cabernet, Spätlese, Auslese, what have you. I've never seen it done. Right.
Yeah.
So I think you assume that if you're picking up a bottle of Pinot Blanc, it's going to be dry, because I've never had a sweet interpretation of. In Alsace, sure, Pinot Gris, Gewürztraminer, Riesling, Muscat, it's a crapshoot. If you know the producer, you know the vintage, it might be a little bit easier. But even still, like as a wine professional, I still don't know a lot of the time if I'm getting something that's bone dry or just a little bit sweet. And that can also
You
be
have
part
to
of the fun.
you have to open the bottle every time.
Yeah. Yeah. Or, you know, you can do a little search, or, you know, talk to the people at the wine shop or at the restaurant. Pretty good idea that they'll know what they're selling you.
Because you've opened the bottle.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think of this one?
Oh, I think it's wonderful. I was really taken back by, not taken back, but it definitely has that tartness to it. It's definitely a wake up wine. Like, it's something that I would definitely start with and then move on from. I don't know, it's something that I would, you know, sit down and knock back a bottle by myself, but I guess that's kind of frowned upon in civilized circles anyway. So
yeah, there's a richness and a texture to this wine. There's a lot of depth and complexity. And quickly touch on food. In Alsace, they eat a lot of pork products. There's a lot of you know, choucroute, sausages, sauerkraut, cheese. They make a ton of cheese in Alsace, or they eat a ton of cheese in Alsace. You know, it's that kind of cold, northerly European climate. So I think a lot of those types of foods would do quite well. You know, like a nice cheese board, a charcuterie board, you know, choucroute en garni, things like that. I also, when I was doing my research on this wine, one of the wine critics said that this would be good with quiche with goat cheese. You know, kind of, you know, goat cheese is that tart, sour character, and it's fresh. And I think that the notes in this wine would play well off of that as well. So
yeah,
another option.
Great. Strong start from the Alsace. Love it.
All right, we're gonna go to wine number 2. And those of you that know me know I'm a huge fan of the wines of Rioja. So we're going to go to Rioja and we're going to have some rosé. This wine is from Vina Real, which was established in the 1920s. It's been purchased by CVNE, or the Campagna Vinicola de Norte de España, or in English, the Northern Spanish Wine Company, which was founded in 1879. Another family-owned winery. This has been in the family for 7 generations. Cune, for short, has now 7 wineries under their umbrella that are all owned by Cune, so all family-owned, operated, and run. Yeah, they've got Cune, they've got Imperial, they've got Vina Real, and the 4th one starts with a C. Like the 4th major one starts with a C. It'll come to me. At any rate, they make world-class wines, mostly in Rioja, but they've branched out to other parts of Spain as well. If you Google this winery, if you Google this winery, Google Vina Real, and look at the winery itself, it is an architectural beauty. There's a lot of very beautiful wineries in Spain. The Vina Real winery is shaped like a barrel. It's shaped like a barrel that's been cut in half, and then you can look at the cellar room inside, and it's just beautiful. So if you get a chance, do a Google search. It's a very impressive winery. The Rioja region in Spain is probably the most recognizable region from Spain. It's located in the north. It's got fairly unique growing conditions. It's protected on one side to protect the region from the cold northerly winds that come in from the Atlantic. And then in the south and in the east, there's another 2 mountain ranges that protect it from really, really hot air that comes up from continental Spain. So it's kind of protected. It's warm, but not hot. So it's got a very even temperature most of the year. It doesn't go super hot in the summer and super cold in the winter, which a lot of regions in Spain do. This region's known mostly for Tempranillo, but this particular wine is quite unique. It is actually mostly white grapes with a little Tempranillo and Garnacha picked at the same time, and then the juices or the grapes are crushed together, and all the juice sits in contact with the white and the red grapes for just a couple of hours to give you this beautiful kind of salmon color. And then the wine is then racked off into stainless steel tanks where it ages for a few months, and then it's bottled quickly to preserve that fresh fruit character. So this is 70% Viura, which is the white grape of Rioja, and then 30% Tempranillo and Garnacha. I get a lot of really lovely peach, which is not something I usually associate with rosé, but I also get some melon, and then you get like the classic rose and strawberry and red berry fruit. It's a dry rosé. Definitely more of that strawberry and melon coming through on the palate. Nice medium bodied, kind of round texture. It's not super tart. It's fresh, but without being super tart. It's nice and light. The alcoholic is 12.5% on this, so it's not super rich.
Yeah, I definitely do catch a lot more roundness off of this, and it's not as in your face. It doesn't there's not a lot of tartness to it.
Yeah, it's a smooth rosé with a nice fruity kind of floral finish, maybe a touch of earth as well. I really love this one. It reminds me of a good Southern French rosé as well. The climates are kind of similar. In the region, they would eat this with a whole range of things. I mean, tapas, so little finger foods. Again, I think this would be great for like a picnic. You're having like a little fruit, a little cheese, a little meat, maybe a sandwich, or just like a really hot patio, and on its own. Drink it pretty quickly, I think. This is going to be our glass pour at Oddfish all summer.
Right. Is this the grape that you mentioned that this is made out of that I've never heard before? Is that just indigenous to this area?
Yeah, I mean it's the white grape of Rioja. I'm sure it's grown other places. I can't think of any off the top of my head. I'll be totally honest, I'm not an expert in Spain at large. I know a decent amount about Rioja, but yeah, it's the most prominent white planting in Rioja for sure. The wines tend to have like an oily texture, some richness without being, but being balanced. There's still a good amount of freshness. Some bottlings are done stainless steel aging. Some of them are aged in oak for a long period of time and then bottled and can be quite age-worthy. Aged white Rioja is a very beautiful wine if you can get your hands on a bottle. But yeah, I think this is really fun. I actually didn't realize this when I started researching the wine, how much white grape juice was in this bottling. But I think it's pretty cool because it's very uncommon. So one of those oddity wines.
No, we've discussed this before, the rise in popularity over the last decade in this province for rosé wines, especially in summertime, as we've witnessed in the restaurants. Did Europe also see this increase in popularity too, or is it just more of a North American thing where rosé spiked, but it was no secret to Europe? This is just what they've always done. They've always enjoyed good rosés.
Yeah, I think it's never been a secret to the Europeans. I mean, they know how to live over there, right? They focus on good food and good drink and family and all that good stuff. And yeah, I mean, I travel to Europe every chance that I get, and you can always find a good bottle of rosé no matter what time of year, right?
Yeah.
There's always going to be a rosé by the glass, whatever the time of year.
Hmm.
And I think, you're even seeing that now in North America too. I mean, we still sell rosé in December,
Oh,
whether
absolutely.
it be by the glass or, more premium bottling. Yeah, there's a demand for sure because it's food friendly and it's delicious. So
Hmm.
yeah, I'm glad
Is there
that
any
we're catching.
is there any particular reason why we put this on the list at Oddfish as opposed to Nook?
Because it's from Spain and we only use Italian wines. Although this, I think stylistically, this would work fantastic with the food at Nook, right? Like even though it's
Yeah.
a Spanish grape, I mean, you had this with margarita pizza or pepperoni pizza, it'd be perfect.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Right on. All right. Wine
All right.
number 3.
Okay, so we're going to move into some red wines now, and this is another Portuguese red. We got a lot of great feedback on the Luis Pato, or sorry, not Luis Pato, Luis Seabra red wine from the Douro. And when I was talking about that wine, I mentioned that he made wine for 10 years at a winery called Neoport in the Douro. So I thought, okay, well, let's taste a wine from that winery. So this is Dirk Neoport's winery in the Douro, but this wine is actually made from the Dow, which is further south. So Neoports, and again, another family-owned winery, started in 1842. So a lot of history there. They're located in the Douro, as I mentioned, and they got their start making the sweet fortified wines with port, and they still make them. And some would argue they make the best tawny ports in the region. I think they're fantastic. But he's definitely more famous, at least now, for his dry table wines from the Douro and elsewhere. He makes wines from Vinho Verde and from Dow. And even when we were in Portugal last year, I saw some wines from Barreira. So he's making wines all over that part of Portugal. What else can I tell you? He foot stomps a lot of his red grapes. I couldn't find out whether this wine was foot stomped or not, but he is known for that. As I mentioned, this is where Luis Seabra learned how to make wine. The Dow is a region that's just south of the Douro, and it again, with the last couple of regions, it has mountain ranges protecting it from cold air coming in from the Atlantic and hot air coming in from central Spain and Portugal. So it's a warm region, but not a hot region. It gets lots of sunshine, and the Dow is considered the most consistent and maybe the most high quality place to grow dry table wines in Portugal. And so for that reason, the wines tend to be a terrific value. They're not as famous as the Douro in the north, but their climate is specifically suited to dry table wines. And yeah, so the wines of the Dow are always an incredible value, red and white. This wine is made mostly with Touriga Nacional and a couple other native grape varieties. It's made from purchased fruit. He doesn't own any property that I could tell down in the Dow. But the grapes are between 30 and 80 years old. This wine is not aged in any kind of oak, but is aged for 2.5 years in cement tanks and then bottled. So it's still aged for a long period of time, just not in oak. And then bottled. There was a light spritz on it when I opened it that seems to have blown off. This wine is bone dry, and it has got tart and ripe red and dark berry fruit. And there's also a lovely savory component here. It's earthy, there's tobacco, there's cracked black pepper, there's just a hint of mint as well. Yeah, it's definitely more earthy today. We opened these bottles last night so I could give you your tasting, and then we're tasting them in the morning. This wine was a little bit more fruit driven last night when I tasted it. And now that earthy, savory tobacco thing is coming out today, which is quite good. Really moderate acidity. It's a smooth wine. The tannins have actually come out a little bit more too. This was very soft last night, and now there's a little bit more structure to it. But the alcohol is still quite moderate. On the label, it says 13, but on the text sheet, it says 12.8. So it's under 13% alcohol. So it's a light wine to be sure, medium to medium plus length, nice earthy, spicy finish. One thing I will say about this wine is that I think if you're looking for a great patio wine to have, like if you're having a barbecue, you have this with a slight chill on it. I think this is one of those red wines where you might want to stick in the fridge for like 20 minutes before you open it, and have it like slightly cool to the touch. You don't want it cold, but like cool for sure.
Yeah. I got a question about your cement tanks.
Yes.
Common in the area, and are they massive?
Yeah, they are large. I don't know how big these tanks are, but just on my general visits to wineries, they're usually 3,000 liters, 5,000 liters, like that. A standard wine barrel would be 225 liters, so at least 10 times the size.
And are they outside?
I can't think of ever seeing any outside. They'd usually be kept in the winery to keep them away from the elements, because I don't know how easy they are to control the temperature. So if they were outside sitting on outside sitting in the sun, that might bake the wines. That's not to say that they haven't been, but I've just never seen them. And I think why concrete is used is because it's a vessel that is porous, so you get small amounts of oxygen exchanging with the wine, like you do with an oak barrel, but you don't get any of the oak flavor. They're easier to clean. They probably last a lot longer. There's a lot of benefits. Sometimes you'll see like concrete eggs, and so the vat is shaped like an egg, and that's because the wine is gently rolling all the time. And then you've got the lees, which we've talked about in other wines. So lees are what happens when you have yeast at each sugar, right? Creates the alcohol, and then once the yeast has been consumed, it precipitates out of the wine and sits at the bottom of the tank, and that's called lees. They're just dead yeast cells, right? And then they can add a flavor, usually to white wines. You don't necessarily taste it in red wines, but it will also add a texture. And so if they're in these concrete eggs and slowly turning all the time, it's building up texture in those wines, which is why they age them like that.
Right. And is that using cement, is that just for that region, or is it more parts of Europe? Is it over? Do we see it in BC at all?
There's definitely concrete eggs in BC. There's definitely concrete in BC. It's becoming more common. Like, I remember 4 years ago on the same trip, I was in Alsace, I went to Bordeaux, and I went to Burgundy as well. And it was not common in those regions. Like, it's not what you would consider classic. They age their wines in oak barrels. That's what they do. But every winery I went to in Bordeaux, and I only went to one winery in Burgundy, but they were not wineries I would have expected to see concrete eggs, but they had them. So they're experimenting, because it does add a textural component to the wine. So they're quite common now. They're everywhere.
And last question about this wine for me. You said that he only he buys other people's fruit. So do you pretty much have to stay on top of, like, you must taste every year to see what he's been up to? Like, you're never going to get the same wine twice, obviously for many wines from the old world, but this would be even more so, I reckon, because the fact that there is different fruit coming from different places, or is it super consistent and I'm being naive?
No, I would say, Neoports pretty recognized person. He's probably the most famous winemaker in Portugal. He's well loved. I'm sure a lot of these arrangements that he has with these growers are handshake arrangements, and he takes the fruit every year. So there's definitely a continuity in the wines of Neoport, stylistically and qualitative wise. He might be changing his fruit sources, year by year because of whatever reason, but it's not going to affect the quality. His wines, like, doesn't matter if you buy a Neoport's like most inexpensive wine or you buy his top wine, it's always going to be quality. Right. Okay. So if he changes a fruit source, it's not going to affect the overall quality of the wine.
Okay, cool.
All right. So now we're getting into a wine that's very exciting. So this is a winery called Lipodazine, which is from Montalcino. And this is a wine that's exclusive to Nook and sister restaurants. So Lipodazine is a Brunello di Montalcino producer, and they're quite a premium boutique winery. Now, this is the youngest winery by far. This winery was started in 1993, and their first vintage was 1997. The winery is owned by a lady named Gigliola and her two daughters, Viola and Sophia. And Mom got her start working for Biondi Santi. And Biondi Santi is probably the most famous winery in Montalcino because it's the oldest. It's the only winery that's been continuously been making dry table wines from Montalcino since I think 1879, since the late 1800s. So she started working there. She worked there for 8 or 10 years and decided she wanted to do her own thing. So she bought property in 1993. Lipodazine is a nickname for Viola and Sophia from their grandmother. And in the local dialect, it means like chickadee. It's a songbird that signifies happiness and joy. So that's what they named the winery after. I had an opportunity to visit this winery when I was in Italy last year. Incredibly hospitable. They're very small winery, only 3,000 cases, which is nothing. And this particular wine, so they're known for their Brunello. Here's a quote that I found when I was doing a little bit of research. Despite its short history, Lipodazine is universally regarded as one of Montalcino's top dozen or so wineries. The estate is known for remarkably refined Brunellos that speak of vintage, place, and grape variety with utmost precision. And that was a quote from Ian D'Agata, who's a wine writer for Venice, which is an American publication. So they've not been around for a long time, but they are regarded as one of the top producers in Montalcino. Their winery and their vineyards are all within 5 kilometers of each other, and they're at very high appellations. In the 90s, when she was buying vineyards and planting, everybody thought she was crazy because she was planting so high, and they're like, you're never going to ripen your grapes. But now she's getting the last laugh because of global warming and how hot everything is. Everybody's looking up because it's hot, right? So the higher you go, the cooler it gets. So the wines of Lipodazine always have an elegance and a finesse to them that you don't always find in Brunello because it's warm, right? The wines can be quite baked and rich. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with Montalcino, it's a hill town in Tuscany in central Italy. Well, here Sangiovese is king. If you see the word Montalcino on a label, whether it be Rosso Di Montoccino or Brunello di Montalcino, it is Sangiovese. Sangiovese is just, or Brunello is the local synonym for Sangiovese. So Brunello di Montalcino literally just means Sangiovese from Montalcino. And this particular bottling, the Toscana IGT, is just Young Vines Brunello di Montalcino, right? So legally, this could be grown and aged and put into Brunello di Montalcino, but because it's their young vines and they don't feel like it's good enough yet to go into their top bottlings, they've opted to do this other bottling called Toscana IGT. And so they grow the grapes with the intent of picking them earlier to retain the freshness and age them in stainless steel instead of oak for a year to keep the primary fruit flavors. And then it's aged after a year, it's bottled, then it's held back for another 6 months and then released. So, I mean, it could also be called Rosso too, but when they're making their Rosso, essentially they take all their best fruit, they take it into the winery, they start the aging process. After 9 months, they start tasting it, and all their best fruit goes to Brunello, and everything else that doesn't quite make the cut gets aged a little less, and they label it as Rosso di Montalcino, right? Which is.
But I have a question for you. Is it ideal for them to say, yeah, we're happy to have Rosso di Montalcino, we're also happy to have Brunello, or in their perfect world, would they have everything so amazing that they say, this is all going to Brunello and we're going to make way more money?
I mean, for some wineries that might be the case, but given how quality focused this winery is, they're only ever putting their best foot forward. there's another category that we haven't talked about, which is Brunello di Montalcino Reserva. So they've been making wines every year since 1997. In that span, which is what, I guess 25 years now, they've made 4 Reservas. I mean, they can make one every year if they want to, but they literally are just a winery that wants to make the best possible wine that they can every year. And yeah, I'm sure like their Rosso is better than a lot of other wineries, Brunello. And likewise with this Toscana IGT, this Toscana IGT is better than a lot of other producers, Rosso Di Montoccino. So one of the reasons I'm so smitten with this wine is because of how much it delivers for how much it costs.
Right.
Discovered this is the first time this wine has come to market. It was brought in for Nook. We'll taste the wine quickly. So right off on the nose, you get this lovely, like ripe and almost baked cherry quality. And then there's like an earthy character, kind of smells like turned earth or potting soil. And then you get all like this herbaceous component, like it smells like Tuscany, it smells like rosemary, it smells like thyme. There's a floral element to this wine that I really love. It kind of smells like lilacs or violets. There's like a purple floral character. And in addition to that, then I get a little bit of sweet spice, like I get a little bit of cinnamon, maybe a little bit of clove. And it's also picking up a touch of leather already as well. For those of you that have eaten at Nook regularly, you might have tasted the sister wine to this, which was called Paris. We had the 2018 vintage of that at Nook for a while. We sold out, but essentially this is what the Paris has become, Lipodazine Toscana IGT. Palate is bone dry. You get all that really lovely baked cherry character, savory herbs. I get a touch of tomato leaf on here as well. Super fresh, really grippy tannic structure. It's really, really awesome. And then the finish just lingers kind of like on a sour, cherry, tomatoey, herbaceous note, with a fairly long finish. I don't know if you can tell. I love this wine. Super food friendly, like for Nook especially. This wine, with pizza, pasta, anything tomato based, anything with a little bit of meat, anything with cheese, anything that's got a little bit of a fatty component, anything that's got olive oil, that's going to kind of help tame that tannic structure. But yeah, I mean, last night when I opened this, to make sure it was in good condition before I poured your taste, it just reminded me of Tuscany. This is what Tuscany smells and tastes like.
There we go. This is probably our fastest wine tasting of all time. We cut it under an hour. Now, I talked to Jamie about food. Do you know what we're doing for food? I think it's a baked pasta, I believe.
Yes, my understanding is that we are doing a large noodle, and I want to say that it's rigatoni, but don't quote me. That'll be mixed with tomato sauce, and I think for the meat eaters, we're doing bolognese and some roasted sausage that's been diced up with lots of fresh herbs, and then cheese baked over the top. And then for the vegetarian option, we're doing something similar, but I think we'll do pomodoro. And yeah, I was tasting with them a few weeks ago when they were doing trial runs on what we were doing, and it's delicious. It's hedonistic and built for this. Actually, all the wines will work, but definitely that's the one. One thing I will say too, about some of these wines, we were talking about it earlier. If you wanted to open some of these ahead of time so that they show a little bit better, wine number 1, the Pinot Blanc. If you've got time to decant it, or splash it into a large mason jar and then pour it back into the bottle, give it some air, it'll show better. And Lipodazine definitely needs to be decanted. It will help show better. Also, this wine has wine diamonds, which are tartrate crystals, and it's a totally natural process in winemaking. It happens to every single wine, but when wineries don't cold stabilize their wines, what that means is once the wine gets cold, these tartrate crystals start to precipitate out of the wine, and they settle in the bottom. And if they haven't done that in the winery before the wine goes into the bottle, it happens when you put it into your wine fridge. So all the Lipodazine that I've opened so far have a small amount of this tartaric acid, or the wine diamonds in the bottle. So you definitely want to decant it for that reason, and because it's going to show better, to give it a little air.
And with decanting, are you talking a couple hours before, morning of, night before?
I think, I mean, if you wanted to open the wines the night before, pop the cork, taste it, put it back in your wine fridge, that'd be fine. If you don't have that kind of time, you don't need to put it into a decanter overnight. But if you wanted to decant these wines, I think like 30 minutes to an hour beforehand, we plenty of time to give the wines to show their best.
Okay, great.
Yeah, the rosé does definitely not need to be decanted. And you could decant the Newport wine as well. You could do it, or you could not. It's going to show well. It'll evolve a little bit in the glass, but it's not necessary.
Yeah. And as we've discussed, many of the people that do this wine club seem to have people over and knock back all 4 wines, if not more, on that one on the one evening. But if you had to pick 2 for the night and then hold 2 back, you know what I mean? Like if you're gonna have a white or a rosé and a red with the meal, which ones would you go with, and which ones might you hold back for another day?
All right. So if you don't know, I buy this wine club every month. I think it's always a lot of fun, and I drink these wines with my friends, as I know a lot of you do. So I think what Ed and I will probably do on Sunday or the following weekend is that we will open these 2 with dinner. You know, nice rich white, nice rich red. Go with the pasta dish, and then we'll save the other 2 wines for the first nice patio day that we have. You know, Ed and I have a nice little small yard in Kitsilano. So as soon as we can break out the barbecue, I've got an awesome bottle of rosé and a wicked bottle of red that I can serve with a light chill. So we can do kebabs or grilled salmon or whatever we're going to do.
Yeah,
that would be how I would go.
Great. But as we all know, everyone just drinks all the wine in one night, but good to know. And for music, Todd and I have yet to discuss it. We had a brief chat last night, and we'll see what you get. It'll be, who knows, it'll be good or not, but we'll figure something out, and it'll probably be 1 to 7 hours long, somewhere in that range.
Awesome. Can't wait. I've started putting together some ideas, so we'll chat.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Well, enjoy, everyone, and thanks for joining again. And yeah, this one was a little bit late just because of March break and people away, and I know a few of you have put away are coming for your wines a bit later. But anyways, thanks for taking part, and we will see you hopefully next month. Ciao.